Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheilla, and our story today is called May Chey Yin to the Rescue. Now, our story comes from a country that used to be called Burma. Now, Burma is a country full of jungles. And in those jungles, there was a pastor whose name was Pastor Hare. And this is one of his stories. You know, right there was a beautiful river that flowed not far from the school where the missionary taught the children about Jesus. And it was a beautiful river. It had big, long sandbars beside it. It just bubbled. It was deep enough to swim in, but it wasn't dangerous. And the kids called it Old Father River. It was never dangerous, except during the time of the year when it was rainy season. Now, during rainy season, the water, the rain, isn't just little gentle rain. Or it isn't even like when we have a rainstorm and it just comes down. It was like sheets of rain. More and more and more rain. And that water from the rain made the river go higher and higher and higher until in places that river was 30 feet deep. Not only was it deep, but the more water that went into it, the faster that river went down the river bank. And it became an angry Father River then. Well, that water, that river, it was like it suddenly had arms, which it didn't have. It was like it would just reach out and grab on to the trunks of trees and pull them out by their roots and throw them into the river, and they would go rushing down the river. And the little bushes that used to stand on the edges of the river were all washed out and thrown into the river, and down the river they would go. Well, when it was rainy season, that river was very dangerous. Well, on this day, the river was running very high. It had been raining season for quite a while now. Well, one of the ladies from the village there was looking out, and she saw 6 little girls making their way toward the bank of the river. And that lady's name was Buyin. She started calling out. She said, "Be careful." And the little girls, they just kind of smiled at her. And they said, "We won't go far out. We'll just go a little ways." "But the current is swift, and the whirlpools," Buyin called after them. "Pooh, we can swim," they said. And you know, they could, but The lady called out again, "Nobody can swim in the whirlpools. You're foolish children." And then the little girl said, "But we're not going in the whirlpools." And they thought she was a silly old lady. Whirlpools, they thought. Well, there was one little girl. Matter of fact, she was the littlest girl from the school, and her name was Mason. And Mason, she looked up so proud of herself. "I can swim. No whirlpool can get me. I'm not even going to go close to any whirlpool." Well, it wasn't long till all 6 little girls jumped on the bank into the water. Well, at first they were having a really good time. The water was nice and cool, and they swam, and little Mason, she dove, and she swam, and she motorboated, and she floated, and she was having a great time, till all of a sudden she noticed she was being pulled by the current down the river, and she started to beat about with her arms. And then she realized that she couldn't swim anymore. The current was too strong, and all she could do was try to keep afloat. And she was running out of strength. Well, the 5 other little girls saw what was happening, and they started to cry out, "Help! Help! Help! Help!" But with the water being so high and rushing so hard, nobody could hear them. "Help! Mason, she's drowning! Help!" But still nobody heard. The girls got out of the water, and they rushed down the bank, trying to follow Mason. Their faces were white now, and they were afraid, and their knees were knocking together. "What shall we do? Oh, what shall we do?" And then Chey, she didn't stop to think anymore. Somebody had to do something. She waited till the current of the whirlpool that Mason was right on the edge of. That whirlpool had caught her and was pulling her round and round and round and round. And when it went out, it would get close to the shore, that whirlpool would. And then it would go way out into the river. And it was pulling little Mason. She would go in the river, and then it would pull her out of the river and in the river and out of the river. Well, then Chey, she jumped into the river, and with 3 or 4 big strokes, she was right there close to where that whirlpool came close to the edge of the river. And now she could see Mason fighting to try to stay afloat. And she reached out with her hand, and she grabbed her by the hair. That was all she could catch. And the girls on the shore went, "You've got her! You've got her by the hair! Pull! Pull! Pull!" And that's what Chey did. She pulled, and she pulled. And the girls kept saying, "You've got her! Pull harder! You've almost got her!" Well, when she was close to the edge, two of those other girls jumped in, and the three of them together pulled little Mason out. Mason was terrified, and all the girls sat in a huddle, all wet, on the side of the riverbank, thinking Mason could have died. And we hadn't listened when we were told about the whirlpool. We hadn't listened. They sat there. They knew they needed to go home. And then one little girl said to all five of the other little girls, "But don't tell anybody what we did. Don't tell anybody about Mason." Well, they didn't want to tell anybody, but when there's been a hero, it's hard not to tell people. And before long, everybody in the village knew about the hero, Machen. Everybody knew. It's hard to be brave without being courageous, and that's what makes a hero. And boys and girls, sometimes we have to be brave to save others. Now, Pastor Hare, he is the one that wrote the story, and he said, "And now I've told all you about the hero." And boys and girls, now I've told you. Bye-bye now. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.